Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. I'm so glad you joined us. Today we have a very special guest. We are talking about unlocking you, how human design supports mental wellness. And this test is just so amazing. And I have a special person here to help us understand what it is, how you can take it, how it will benefit your life. Monique Alvarez is a business consultant and a publisher who creates customized experiences based on the human design. And I have had the privilege of working with her. She's helping me write with my book writing, and she's going to be my publisher. And she's also helping me build out a learning platform. And we were using the human design as a way to maximize like our work together, but also how I would work best on these projects. So Monique, why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you work with human design?
Thank you for having me, Maria. Well, I always say that really my full-time job is being a mom and a private chef. And when I'm not doing that, I'm helping amazing women in business who have big visions figure out their voice and what they have to say and how to say it in a way that's really true to them. And the reason I fell in love with human design is because it really helps people come back to themselves. And sometimes after years of being told who we are or being molded and shaped, it's hard to be ourselves or to quote unquote speak our truth when we have forgot what that even is.
Yes, very true. And there's something about human design. I took this test years ago, and it was so accurate in a description of who I am. And it really helped me recognize like the parts of me that were living out of more of the false self or conditioning from early on. And just to recognize how much I long to live in that experience of being connected with my authentic self and how I live my life and to live in flow. So anyway, I was so excited to find you because you were using that test in this unique way. So share a little bit more, because we want the listeners by the end of this to know what human design is, how they can take it, how they can get it interpreted, how it might be beneficial to their lives in terms of living out of their authentic selves. But also, I think when you do that, it really improves your mental wellness and mood and energy and everything. So maybe
Yes.
explain a little bit more about just the test itself.
Sure. Well, what I love about it is that you can input your name, your date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, and within 30 seconds, you have this printout, basically this a whole report on who you've been from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I find it's really exciting. It's validating. It's encouraging. And what I find is when I give my clients their report, they're like, oh, this is a relief. It's encouraging. And usually it's a very emotional moment because they no longer make themselves wrong for who they are. Just to give one example, I remember when I got my test and I found out I was a manifesting generator, and it will say, you kind of hop from thing to thing. And when you're done, you're done. Doesn't mean that other person's done. Doesn't mean the season's done. Doesn't mean whoever else is done. And you don't go 1, 2, 3. You go A, blue, C, star. And I was like, yes, that's me. And everyone would be like, you need to be a finisher and all this nonsense. And I was like, actually, I don't, And there's moments that help us see ourselves. And what I love is it's actually a collection of many things. And so in 1987, when Ra got this download, it combines astrology, the Kabbalah. It has, quantum physics. It's this whole recipe, we'll call it, to help bring us back to, oh yeah, you came into the planet at this time in this way. The stars were aligned here. This is who you are. This is how you express yourself. And this is also the gift you are to the world. Guess what? When you are like this and you honor this, it's not only good for you, it's good for everybody. And that's why it can be applied in so many different ways.
Yeah. No, that part I loved. It was very like I was getting clear on my purpose and what I was passionate about. And it was like, okay, this is how you lean into who you are, but how it's also going to benefit other people when you do that. And that's
Yes.
really powerful because, again, we all want to have a contribution in the world and to feel valuable. And this is such a way to be able to get clear on that.
It's true. And I will tell you, Maria, what I learned, because this was my experience and for many of my clients, is most people have a desire to have their life feel like it matters, to feel like we wake up and we can do something or leave a mark or, support somebody else, be in service to others, whether it's in a little moment with someone at the grocery store on a big scale. But what I find is that often the path to that is actually what derails us. Because when when our first thing is to be in service to others, we often go, oh, what does this person need? Who does this person want me to be? And so we adapt and we adjust.
Yes.
And then you hit a point in your life and you realize, oh, I have to honor myself. I have to be in service to myself. And then that is automatically in service to others. And then we realize we want to get at the same place. We have the same desire. We're just working from the other end of it.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the things I've been trying to incorporate with clients. I know as a therapist, they're coming in with depression and anxiety, and we need to work through some of the trauma and all the things that have gotten them to this place. But I also want to be pulling them forward into their future at the same time, because without that, it's very hard to stay in all that work around the past. It's like having the blend of, while you're healing that trauma, I want you to be, living in alignment with yourself so that you can create this future that you really want, that fits you. And so this test I've been recommending to people, and it's been really life-changing for a lot of people. Why don't you explain, what's the best way to go about this test? Because I know you can do it online. Do you need someone to help you interpret it? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I recommend go get the test immediately. Just give yourself an overview of it, right? Because this is a thing with human design. When I first got my test done, I don't know, it might have been 8-10 years now. At first, I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose, but there were nuggets that I could really pull out and immediately get some value. What was most beneficial was then having someone kind of help me go through it layer by layer, one aspect at a time. I'm still discovering aspects and figuring out what all this means, but I would say don't try to get it all at once.
That's a really good point. Yeah. It's just at the
'Cause
beginning,
it's
take
deep.
it, and then you'd be like, oh my gosh, they just described me, and take that in. And then you go through and do layers of it later.
Do layers. Yeah. You know what I did from the beginning? I would read my report once a week or once every 2 weeks, once a month, just kind of go through layers, and something would jump out at me. And then I would look at what that aspect really meant for my life in the season that I'm in and whatever I'm working through. And one of the things that I love, and you refer to this, is it actually helped me frame the things that had quote unquote happened to me, or the challenges in my life, things that I was like, I really wish that wasn't part of my journey. And I realized when I was going through my human design, that's part of my preparation, because even in our design, we can see how the very challenging things set us up to be even more of ourselves. And when we're going through it, nobody wants to hear that. I've went through big loss. I lost a daughter. I've went through major issues with family. Nobody wants to hear this nice, everything happens for a reason. But the truth of the matter is every single thing in our life truly is shaping us.
Yes.
And what I learned is that none of us like the fires of life. We would love to float on that cloud, and we like easy, and we like familiar and comfortable and convenient. But when I am forged in the fires, when we embrace that, that's actually when our greatest service is realized.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other part with mental health that I find really important to educate clients on. It's not that your issues are going to go away, but when you turn towards them with love and compassion and learn how to learn from the mistakes or the struggles, and that's where most of the growth happens, right? And so to your point, it's like the human design piece, you can look back and go, oh, those struggles were because I was out of alignment with my true self. And how can I be more in alignment now with the decisions I'm making to be happier? And you start putting those pieces together, and it's pretty simple. It all kind of clicks in. And then that piece of being of service to people with the things we've gone through. I mean, what is more life-giving than feeling like there's some purpose in our struggle, right?
Definitely. And I think when we realize it isn't just for me, it's also for somebody else, they're not going to feel alone. They don't have to start at square one. We have things that we can offer. It's true. And, one of the things that I want to invite people to look at first on their report and on their chart is look at your environment. So it's like an easy first place to go, because your environment is where you're going to feel filled up and inspired and alive, and ideas pop for you. I even do this with my kids. I go back and I read their environments and I make sure that I put them in these environments on a regular basis. I do it for myself.
Yeah.
No matter what stage of life you're in, no matter what you accomplish, no matter if you're up or down in the high season or the low season, everybody kind of almost forgets and can get in a slump or just a funk. And if you go to your environment, it's the fastest way to have a shift and to sort of create that buoyancy and it allows you to feel good. And so I think looking at the environment is sort of like,
What's an example of that?
okay, so let me give you an example. So some people are mountains, some people are marketplace, some people are, shores. So I'm marketplace. So I do really well when I'm in this sort of hustle bustle busyness, money's being exchanged, people are coming in and out. That might be a coffee shop, that might be downtown. It's just a place where there's a lot going on and I'm observing this. And what I noticed is I don't necessarily have to do work in that environment. I can go to the coffee shop and work, but even if I just sit in it for 30 minutes and I watch what's going on, it's like bubbles of a sparkling water, rising to the top. And I just get pings of inspiration. I'll get downloads, I'll get ideas, and then I'll go home and I'll act on it or I'll write it all down.
Okay.
And that will take me from sort of this like, I get a lot from the world, even if it doesn't directly relate to what I think I'm doing or what I want to do. Mountains, people who are mountains, they need to, they might go to a mountain. They might go to the top of a high building. They need some place where they can get a higher perspective. So it's like pull away, pull out of it, because sometimes you're just too close to it, and look at things from a new perspective. Go take the day and switch up your environment. And what do you know? Things start clicking in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Because I haven't heard this before.
Yeah, there's shores. Oh, there's caves. My husband is a cave.
Okay.
It's interesting, of course, because, a cave and a marketplace, they always marry each other, right? So he loves it when he can have his space where it's just like, it's a predictable environment. It's his stuff is there. He knows his favorite stuff will be there. And that's where he is calm and clear. And then I'll drag him out to the marketplace. And then, he drags me to the cave and, we do that whole thing. So I find too, you can even include aspects of this in your schedule. I have a client, we discovered she was a marketplace. She was working at home every day by herself. Not only was she uninspired, she was lonely, she was isolated, and things were not clicking. So that's a real easy one to start to implement and embrace.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Now, what about if people are skeptical on quantum physics or astrology? I mean, tell us, because I think we're kind of learning to embrace that there is actual science around this stuff.
Yes.
But
exactly.
There's still a lot of like woo-woo impression that people have. So can you explain a little bit more of the science around it?
I'm going to tell you, I'm not so good at the science, but this is what I always tell people who are skeptical. And sometimes I've had clients and they're like, I don't believe in any of this, but if you want to do it, do it. What I tell people, especially if you're feeling like you're dealing with depression, anxiety, you're not feeling inspired, you feel lost. This can happen. This is also really prevalent in certain stages of life. A lot of my clients, they're 40, 50 years old, and they're going, remind me again what the heck I'm doing here.
Right.
I don't know
who I am.
This is all about what, and it feels like a time that we should know, we should feel like we have our act together and we know what we're doing. And, and it's not, it's the opposite. It's just like, what in the world? So what I tell people is this: you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Because most people, when they are looking at human design or it comes into their life, they're in a shitty place, they're lost, they're perplexed. And so I say, what the heck? This is a great time to just approach it with an open mind. You don't even have to accept it as fact. You don't have to accept it as who you are. You could just try it on and notice and experiment with it. I find that life is a lot more fun when it's an experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I'm more of a science person. So I remember I started researching the science, but then I was like, I'll just take it and see what I think. And then I took it and I was like, what the heck? And the accuracy was so insane.
It is.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are statistics out there, but I never got into the research around it. And I was just curious, but I like your point of just take it and see, and have it be an experiment.
Yeah, just have it be an experiment. I will tell you too, oftentimes I will have people look up their children's charts.
I did that too. And that actually was extremely accurate for them too. And that is fascinating. And it helped me relate to them differently, like better.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. So I find that if people are having a hard time accepting it for themselves, if they run their spouse or their children or their best friend through it, it's very interesting because then it doesn't feel like they have to sort of look under the microscope of themselves. When I did my kids' charts, it made so much sense, and I just couldn't figure out, how does this chart know them so well? And this is the other thing it helped me with is, I have boys that are 12 months apart. So it is just competition every day for that position one. You know what I'm saying?
You can only imagine because I have two boys, but they're 3.5 years apart.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, I remember the first time they started wrestling, they were babies. And I thought, I thought WWF would start a little bit later. And so they're both alphas. They're both leaders. It's like they're twins. And when I went through their charts with them and I said it in a way that they could relate to, and then I gave them examples of other people who have a similar chart. And I said, we're going to respect each other for who we are and respect each other for who they are. And it has opened up so many conversations. Behind me, I have this 11-foot farm table, and we talk about human design more than any other topic at this table because I want them to see this is how you're bent. Don't try to change it. Don't try to be better. I want you to embrace who you are and with who you are, exactly how you are.
I love
This
that.
is who
Starting
you
at a
can be
young
in the world.
age with that. 'Cause I
Young
didn't
age.
take it for them until they were in high school. But it's the same thing. Like, it's so beneficial to be like, this is how you were made. So like, let's stop, blaming the other person for being a certain way and accept the other person for who they are.
Yes.
And it's
I find that acceptance is huge. It helps us accept others, helps us accept ourselves.
right.
And, finding that peace, that inner peace that everyone longs for, and being able to have that stillness inside and being able to trust life and to know that you're taken care of and to know somehow, some way it's all coming together. I find one of the key pillars in that is accepting myself exactly the way I am, accepting life exactly as it's unfolded.
Yes.
And I find human design can really help with that.
And living in alignment with that. Like, one of the things that helped me with working with you is it's like all these trainings you get. I mean, it's with everything. Like, this physical trainer tells you to do it this way. And I've never fit like any prescription. I've always had to
Right.
figure out my own way to do things because it just never works for me. And so even with you, and I was saying, like, I feel like I should have my podcast episodes all lined up and I should have, all these things. And I'm like, but it just works for me to figure out, I meet someone this week and then I schedule them. And it's like a very go with the flow. And you were like, well, is it working? And I'm like, pretty much. And you're like, that's it. And it was just so refreshing because I kept feeling like I needed to do it the way other people were prescribing it. And that's just one example of it's a relief to be able to live the way that actually really works for me.
Yes, it's true. And this is what I tell people. This is what I tell clients all the time. And this is true with business. This is true with life. Everything works. You could get up at 5 a.m. and you could go to the gym and you could work out for 2 hours and that will work. You could never work out in your whole life and you just go for a casual walk in the afternoon when you just want to, and that can work. Everything works. The real reason we're here is to figure out what works for me this time around. How am I doing it?
Yep. And there's so much freedom in that because that is part of, especially in the United States, we're so productive oriented and having formulas for every area of our life. And it's like, I am just not a human being that works for in any way. I mean, I'm more emotional, I'm more intuitive. And so it's like, I've always felt like there's something wrong with the way I live and do things. And to be able to honor it and just be like, this is who I am. And especially at my age, in my 50s now, it's like, I should be at that place where that can be okay. But it's still a struggle. You get pulled into I'm not doing it right. And here's the right way,
I should be doing it better. There's probably a better way. I'm glad you brought up the United States because I've actually spent about half of my life in the U.S. and half outside the U.S. Yes, the U.S. is a thing. And this is what I'm going to tell Americans. If you're an American and you've spent pretty much your whole life in the United States, it's exactly like you said. You actually can't understand how driven and how success oriented, how productive, all of those things we are until you leave. And I had the blessing of spending my 20s overseas in a very slow, developing, in the middle of nowhere country. And I'm grateful for it now because it solidified for years that I was going to live that way. And I will tell you, even coming back into the US, as soon as I land on US soil, I can feel it. It's this anxiety from everyone. We got to move faster. We got to make more money. We got to be better. We got to, and it's just like.
Be on your phone all the time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because if I'm not, I mean, people are in line at the grocery store. They're in line for 60 seconds. 2-3 minutes max. Oh, I better look at my phone. I better do something. And what I will say is this: is I've lived in so many different cultures and so many different countries, and I will tell you, we are the ones who have a depression and anxiety issue. Most other countries don't. Only ones that do are the ones who try to compete with us.
Right.
Please don't be like the US. And it's because, like, when I lived overseas and I took my boys overseas for the first 5 years of their life, I wanted to instill that slow, intentional living in them. When you eat, you eat. You sit down at a table and you eat with people you care about. You don't eat at your desk. You don't eat in the car. You don't eat while you're walking. I remember I had just moved to Albania and I was eating a banana walking down the street and I didn't think that was a big deal. And literally everyone turned their head to look at me and said, "Why are you behaving like this?"
Huh.
You don't eat on the go and you don't eat alone, right? When we are living, like you said, in alignment with who we are, what we figure out is the American culture, it actually doesn't work for any human being.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But it is a very strong current and we get swept up in it. And so that's what I find too, is when we go through our human design, we find our environment, we find when we eat best, how we work best, how we rest best. We get to redefine it. And that is actual success, not in trying to keep up with somebody else's agenda, but in going, this is how I'm going to do it because this is my peace and my happiness.
Yeah. And we get to create that, even though we live here, we can create that anywhere. But I mean, to your point, I do feel like that's a big reason that, the rates of depression and anxiety have soared since COVID specifically because of the individualistic piece of our culture. And all these other cultures are so family oriented. And it's just like how much we as humans are meant to have connection. And then you add social media onto a more individualized culture. I mean, it's like the disconnection is massive. And I do think at the core, that is one of the biggest issues with mental health is people not feeling like they're part of families and tribes and, all these things that other cultures value as number one. So
definitely. Being part of a community, a family, or a tribe, this is as old as time. We're hardwired for that.
Yeah.
And the brain actually functions differently when we're not part of a group, when we don't feel like we belong, when we don't have someone that we can call for 5-10 minutes and talk to, when we don't have someone that we go for a walk with, that we have meals with, that help us raise our children.
Yes.
This is and social media is false connection,
Yeah.
And it can be a great starting point. It's a stressful connection.
Yeah, you're like, oh God, they're traveling so much and their life looks so great. And you're just like,
yeah, we just get into comparing and, they must have it all figured out and their life is easy. No one's life is easy. And I think
and it's all fake, right? Like, it's just hilarious because we see it. I mean, I see all the perfect people in my office and they're not perfect.
Exactly. It's like, more perfect they look, I will tell you, the more of a shit show it is behind the scenes.
100%. 100%. That's hilarious.
So yeah, and I say this, like, I love to find something as a point of connection. One of the things that has helped me, we've lived in a very isolated community. I just told you before we got on, like, I live in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. And what really helped me is I got this giant farm table and I fed people and hosted, and we had conversations about human design and astrology and things that people didn't know about before they got here. But by God, I'll tell you, if you come to my house, we're going to talk about it,
That's awesome.
And just finding ways of, like, how can I not spend this whole week alone or this whole month alone? How can I spend, some time? And it doesn't this is also where people get caught up. It doesn't have to cost money. You can make it simple.
No, most things are free. I mean, I like as an introvert too, it's hard because I don't like to go out in big crowds or in big groups. But for me, like just dropping into the dog park or dropping into a yoga class, like it feels like I'm getting some connection with human beings. And so it's like you can figure out what works for you, but we do need to be around people. I mean, it's like you can find a way, you know what I mean? But just
Find a
to
way that works
value
for
that
you.
as a priority, because to your point, it's like, I mean, what a drastic difference for that person working from home who needed to be around that energy and now is kind of getting unlocked with their creativity. So I think that's where human design is helpful too. It's like, okay, this is who you are, and this is how you can best function in the world that you live in. But keep that high value of connection, purpose, all those things that make us feel alive. And
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that word, because this is really what it's about. And I find this is physical health, mental health, healthy relationships.
yes,
The more alive I feel and the more alive I am, the better all of these areas are. So I just, in the last 6-9 months came out of a really challenging time. And I remember feeling like I was not alive. I felt dull. I felt where I was breathing and I had a pulse, but I was not vibrant and I wasn't alive. Yeah. And I will never forget it. I had this dream and I heard this voice say, "Look alive, Monique.
Hmm.
Look alive. Go do something today that will make you feel alive." This is going to be individual as well, but creating a list of what and who makes me feel most alive.
I love that.
Leaning into that, on Monday, I played hooky. I went to the river with the boys. We decided to float down, and it was a whole not go as planned type of day. And I've been on the river a million times. I ended up rafting down the river without a raft. And it was the most exhilarating thing I've had in a long time. And I mean, I'm trying not to bump my head and my tailbone. I'm trying not to die or break a bone in the process. And I get to the bottom and it's the shallow water. And I was like, there's nothing better than feeling alive.
Yes.
And guess what happens when we're alive? We attract everything else that is just pinging on that high level, right? And life's not always high vibe and high frequency and all that, right? But when I know, yes,
It's
be
like the goal is to live
in
in
it.
the present moment, not to be worried about the future, thinking about the past. And it's those alive moments. It's so powerful because you're just there in that moment.
And the one alive moment, it can fuel you for a while.
It's true.
It can carry you.
I love that. All right. Well, is there anything else as we wrap up that you can think of that might be words of wisdom?
This is what I would say, is that no matter where you are right now, no matter how you're feeling about yourself or your life or what you have done or where you think you should be by now and all of this is what I want you to remember, is that you are so incredibly unique and special. You have an essence that no one else does. Whether it's a good time or a shitty time, you hold gifts that you personally get to benefit from and others can as well. And I just want to encourage people, go get your report. One thing will jump out at you and it will give you a lift. It will give you inspiration and encouragement. Just start there.
Great. Those are great tips. And I'm so excited for all the listeners just to get this test done and to experience what both you and I have experienced of just like, whoa, somebody gets me. It's an incredible feeling to have it written out so clearly. And then to be able to live more in alignment with that. And there's just so much power in that. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a privilege just to get to talk to you more about this. We only talked a little in the beginning of our work, but just to hear more. And we'll have all of Monique's information in the show notes. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week at Catalyst for Healing. Bye.
Bye.